Today we have Shana Knight. She is the food sourcing director of the Food Bank of the Rockies. And Shana has had a really robust career in the food industry, from food broker to multi-state regional sales manager. Shana knows how to sell portfolios of food lines through and into food distributors by supporting sales teams and showcasing food to chefs across the West. After spending time on a farm, she began working with the Colorado Department of Agriculture, and here she supported local food and ag-based businesses. Through the farm to school efforts with Farm to School Task Force, managed grants, and provided on-farm buyer tours on behalf of the Colorado Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association. As the food sourcing director at the Food Bank of the Rockies, she oversees a team that manages food donation relations of hundreds of valued food donors, resulting in 38 million pounds of accessible food to food pantries. Shana also manages a team that has expanded purchased product offerings in all categories, with a spend growing to $12 million a year, gaining national recognition within the Feeding America network. We're thrilled to have Shana with us. We also are joined by Al Stone, who is the markets manager and mycelium architect for Valley Roots Food Hub. Al grew up in Marietta, Georgia, and upon graduating from Georgia Tech with a bachelor's in science, technology, and culture, she took a one-way train ride on the Amtrak to Eugene, Oregon. There, she did work trade through worldwide opportunities of organic farming and on a small homestead for 5 months. Wanting more, her life took a small detour and she ended up in the San Luis Valley here in Colorado, volunteering with Alpine Achievers and helping run an after-school program in Crestone, bringing garden education to the South Conejos School District and Boys and Girls Club of the San Luis Valley. Post-AmeriCorps, Al worked in a seasonal position with the Valley Educational Gardens Initiative, a program of La Puente, before finding herself in the Valley Roots Food Hub as the markets manager. Al is passionate about regenerative agriculture, reconnecting others to the food they eat, and nutrition access for all. We are also joined by Roberto Mesa. He is the co-founder and CEO of the East Denver Food Hub. Roberto is a first-generation farmer and local food advocate. Originally from Mexico, Roberto is the co-founder of the Emerald Gardens, a year-round greenhouse farm in Bennett, Colorado, and CEO of the East Denver Food Hub, a local food supplier based in Denver. His work lies in the intersection of policy, sustainable agriculture, food systems, and environmental stewardship. He is board president of the National Young Farmers Coalition, board member of Zero Footprint, co-chair of the Land Access and Policy Committee for Mile High Farmers, and governor-appointed member of the Colorado Agricultural Commission. We are also lucky enough to be joined by 2 producers here in Colorado. Derek Hoffman, who is the owner-operator of Hoffman Farms. He is a 3rd-generation farmer in Colorado, but 1st-generation vegetable farmer. He grew up farming around Johnstown with his grandfather and his father, but left farming in 2002. His wife, May, started Hoffman Farms in 2014, and together they expanded over the last 9 years from a 3-acre farmers market farm to now over 100 acres focused on wholesale. They are currently located on the north side of Greeley and lease 4 farms that they grow mixed vegetables and silage corn on. We're also joined by a Colorado rancher, Janie Van Winkle. She is owner-operator of Van Winkle Ranch. She is a lifelong beef producer in Western Colorado with her family. Growing up in the Unaweep Canyon and later in the Dolores River between Gateway and Uravan, she learned about land, livestock, and water from an early age. Janie and her husband, Howard, currently own and manage 550 head of cattle in Mesa County. Dean, their son, graduated from Kansas State University in the spring of 2021 and has returned to join the family business. Taylor, his wife, has joined the ranch as well. Van Winkle Ranch is a conventional cow-calf producer with cattle moving into the supply chain to ensure the high-quality protein is available for all. The ranch has been committed to their direct-to-consumer marketing quality ground beef since 2017, and this provides opportunities to connect directly with consumers, voters, and help them put a face to production agriculture. Food Bank of the Rockies is also a partner with Van Winkle Ranch to provide high-quality protein to families that need it. Over 40,000 pounds of ground beef has been sold to the Food Bank of the Rockies in 2022. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started with Shayna Knight from the Food Bank of the Rockies.
Perfect. I'm requesting screen control.
Perfect. I think I did it, Shayna. So
Let me share my screen. I think you have to exit out maybe of your screen and then I can share mine.
there you go. I stopped sharing.
This says host disabled participant screen sharing. And it is not letting me share.
I apologize. I can pull up your presentation. I don't know what I clicked to do that. So
it's okay.
Zoom and I are
we got to
like
back
each
up
other today.
It could be me, so we're fine.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Can you see that okay?
Yep, wonderful. So I'll start if that's all right.
Go.
All right, so as Barb mentioned, I work over at Food Bank of the Rockies. My goal for you is to have an understanding of food banks and how to work with us. And if you don't mind going to the next slide. First, you need to understand the lay of the land of food banking. It's a little bit different than most parts of the food system. First, I want to go over what is a food pantry versus a food bank. So a food pantry is oftentimes those organizations that serve those in need, whereas food bank is an organization that provides food to food pantries. So we are, in essence, a food distributor for food pantries. Food banks are often part of the Feeding America network. So Food Bank of the Rockies is one of those. Feeding America provides us with national standards, such as being able to ensure we can service a region appropriately. They provide us with resources such as food donations, food to purchase, and freight subsidies. They advocate on behalf of food banks, and they often provide grants to benefit our food pantries. In Colorado, there are 5 total Feeding America food banks. They comprise of a group called the Feeding Colorado organization. And if you look over to the right of the screen, you can see the Food Bank of the Rockies footprint. We have a total of 4 warehouses, but one provides government food, and the rest of the 3 provide donated or purchased, as seen on the screen. There is a saying within food banking: if you've met one food bank, you have literally only met one food bank. There's very little commonality between us all, but one commonality is the sourcing department. So sourcing in food bank world means a way to obtain food. So as the department that brings in food to the food bank. This can be either through government sources, such as the TFAP program, or non-government food, such as donations or purchased food. Fundamentally, food banks provide food access points for food pantries in their given region. And food access points can include things like government programs, grocery store level donations, and from our warehouses, either direct deliveries or direct pickups. And if you don't mind, next slide. So what does purchasing look like for Food Bank of the Rockies? I have a total of 2 buyers, and our primary goal here at Food Bank of the Rockies is, of course, donations. So my entire department focuses primarily on donations. My 2 buyers also help support those donations, but they also bring in a lot of great food that we purchase. Categories that we have grown to purchase include protein, dairy and eggs, produce, and dry goods. We are still learning. Every category is uniquely different, all on its own, whether it's from the sourcing side or from the distribution side. And it's taking us a few years to grow into this. And I think, and I'm quite actually proud of it, we provide free produce to all of our pantry partners. So this at a cost to us right now is about 3.8 million. Which is something that, again, I'm very, very happy about and proud of. We are one of the top food banks in the nation to offer a large variety to our pantries. Things internally, such as initiatives and programs that we purchase for that has allowed us to have that variety, includes a culturally relevant food initiative, meaning we have lists of cultures and their preferred food preferences in our given service region. So we're able to purchase off of that list. We also help service tribal nations. This is something that Valley Roots has been helpful to us with working with the Ute Mountain Indian tribe down in southern Colorado with gaining access to some of their product for us to service those in Wyoming. And we also source for holidays such as Ramadan, Lunar New Year, Navidad, and Thanksgiving. We have a nutrition initiative that's going to be beginning here sometime over the next year. And we also source for our pantry partners for special events or special requests, depending on what the request is. And we also do a lot with grant work. Last year, we were able to work through a grant to purchase from East Denver Food Hub, for example. Next slide, Barb. So we do work in systems, food systems. So for me, I wanted to go over our produce, protein, and then other. With regards to produce, we support every size and scale of producer. Right now, we're purchasing from 25 producers direct. And we do offer a fair transaction, meaning we do not expect our small scale producers to offer us volume pricing. Right now, a good example of a price per pound from a small scale producer could be about $8 a pound versus a full truckload of local produce can be about 32 cents a pound. We're able to do this because we average out our pricing, which is something that most distributors aren't able to do. We do not want anyone to grow specifically for us. We don't want that responsibility. We want to be a backup to your primary focus. Our primary goal is for us to have strong economies, and for us to do that, we find we don't want to be the top dog that you're supplying, but we just want to be in the background supporting you as we go. We do not function off of menus or set offerings. This was something that allowed us to purchase over this last year from Hoffman Farms. And we do purchase full truckloads, and I'm going to say from large, in quotes, producers in the state, meaning our large producers here in Colorado are family owned and operated, and they do care about their local communities and offer us a lot of donations in addition to purchase goods. And this is my shameless plug. If you are a producer, to please consider becoming part of the Colorado Fruit and Veggie Growers Association. We work with 5 food hubs consistently here in the state. They primarily help us with sourcing from those small to mid-sized producers, mostly because of vendor management, as noted, and they offer a lot of other support as well. But I only have 2 buyers. So for us to be able to work with a larger amount of producers in the state, we found that working with food hubs has been of great value to us. Some of them delivered to our warehouse, such as Valley Roots, and we are doing a test market right now where we have a few along their already established routes delivered directly to some of our rural pantry partners to ensure that they get fresh access to produce at times when we may not be able to get up there as frequently. We love food hubs who leverage us to grow their producers' capacity or markets. A good example is working with a local food hub who primarily had us work with one small scale producer. We got them up to speed with food safety standards. They were able to provide us with what they had, started off with cases, and at the end of the season, we had pallets. They paid off their loan early, and they were also able to purchase a forklift. So for me, that was a big impact that we're able to have. With protein, we've worked with the Rocky Mountain Farmers Union through a grant offered by the Colorado Department of Agriculture to support drought relief to ranchers. I will say for most distributors, it is difficult to work with small scale ranch production, mostly because, for example, if you purchase 1 cow, at the end of the day, you may have 10 cases that weigh 30 pounds of 1 pound chubs. And that cow may not offer even amount of cases. So us here at Food Bank of the Rockies, that one case that may have 25 pounds in it instead of 30 pounds, we create a new item card and we change, obviously the price point has to reflect that as well. So we are very flexible in our systems internally to help support those small ranchers. And we do work right now, obviously with Van Winkle Ranch, who is a great supporter of ours. We offset costs of local beef with grants to ensure affordability to our partners. Other areas that we work in is we are sustainability partners with food donors by preventing food waste. We work with CXU Extension Research Center out in Mesa County, and we also work with local gleaning groups. If you don't mind, next slide. Opportunities for Food Bank of the Rockies to work with Colorado Proud members includes donations, opportunity buys, consistent purchasing, and grants or other funding. Donations to us, as mentioned before, is our primary focus. We currently have a farm to food bank grant. Obviously, with grants, there's limited time and limited funding available, but we can offset donations from farmers with this grant. We work with custom exempt processors who are cleaning out their coolers prior to hunting season. We can pay to clean dry beans, for example. If you have a brand change and have some old product with an old brand on it, we're more than happy to take that as a donation. And we are more than happy to work with bulk loads. Benefits to donating include tax benefits, great PR. We can pick up 2 pallets or more directly from you. We provide donation receipts and reports and donor recognition. Opportunity buys for us include rejected loads, only if it's food safe, however. So if you have a load that was rejected, we can often take that. Bumper crops are important to us as far as letting you know that we can have access to that through an opportunity buy. And if a buyer, for example, backs out of a purchase and you need to move it, give us a call. There's no harm in calling us to see what we could do. If you're cleaning out old inventory, such as storage crops, also please keep us in mind. Consistent purchases for us looks like, for example, we're able to adapt seasonally, meaning we'll make room for local produce. If you cannot fill an order, just let us know. It's fine. We don't work off of menus. We're very flexible. We do not want, or what we do want is to purchase items that fit our initiatives. That's really important to us. And we want to purchase items that are in high demand. We do have an inventory that we have to manage. So inventory turns are important to us. And we do have a budget that we need to be careful with at the end of the day. Grants for us are unpredictable, but they're worthy to think about and partnering us with. There's limited time, but we're transparent. Relationships for us go both ways. We don't want to put you in a pickle, and we want to let you know what's coming down the line. We can typically offset costs, meaning we don't want to create a false demand or forecast. If we can provide or prove demand, we'll keep purchasing from you even after the grant. That's our goal at the end of the day, is to help healthy economies. Next slide, please. I wanted to give some advice with working with buyers. I've been on both sides of the coin. So for me, these are just notes that I think are really important when approaching buyers. So please approach us with curiosity. Many pass up food banks just because they assume. Ask, learn more about the business and what the buyer is faced with. Ask about special programs or initiatives. How can you make their life easier? What is an item that they're looking for? Even if you don't sell that item and you have a buddy who sells that item, that will get you in the door with a buyer because you're looking out for them. Ask open-ended questions anytime you can and look for reasons to follow up. The more time you can spend in front of a buyer, the more it gives you a reason to be in front of them. They'll remember you. Embrace sales. Too many people view sales as negative, and I think a lot of people underplay the power of a salesperson. Build relationships. Do not talk poorly about a company if they cannot continue purchasing from you. Things happen to funding or initiatives that are often beyond the buyer's control. If a buyer likes you, they'll remember you in other roles and reach back when things change. No buyer needs their email or reads their emails unless they like you as a person. This sounds really harsh, but it's absolutely true. Or you have a solution to offer them. We get bombarded by emails every single day. It's nothing personal. It's just us trying to juggle a lot at the same time with regards to what we have on our desks. Your job is to get a buyer's attention. Please use local and Colorado proud in your subject line. That is of big value to buyers here in Colorado. What holds true now may not hold true in a year from now. If you talk to a buyer and they tell you no, that's okay. Say, hey, can I call you in a year from now just to understand where you're at? And oftentimes they'll say yes, and they'll expect your call, and they'll be happy to talk about what's going on in their organization for that coming year. Learn your buyer's preferred form of communication and use it. If you prefer phone calls, but your buyer prefers emails, you're going to quickly lose their attention, and they're going to stop answering the phone if you're not communicating in the way that they need you to. And then last but not least, and most importantly, know your pricing and know your product. Last slide, please, Barb. And this is my shameless plug for volunteer opportunities. If you are interested in learning more about our warehouse, what we do with product, this is a great first step to getting more familiar with what we do. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Great job, Shana. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but I want to throw that out there. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Let's move on to Al Stone. Al, do you want to try to share your screen?
It does say host disabled participant screen sharing again.
I'm quite the host.
Barbie, you might try giving Al co-hosting privileges.
Great idea. I'm going to do that right now. Because when it comes up, I do say you're approved, but.
All right, so now y'all can see all this jumble mess of my screen. Where's the... All right, can everyone see it okay? All right, so Valley Roots Food Hub. We also are known as Taproot Cooperative on the Front Range and out of the San Luis Valley. But most of our website marketing is Valley Roots Food Hub. And so we are a local food distributor, and we're based in Mosca, Colorado. We share a facility with White Rock Specialties Potatoes, which is really awesome. And White Rock is made up of Paul New and Sheldon Rocky to make White Rock Specialties. It's a potato packing house. And then the New family also does quinoa. So we're really grateful to have those guys right in our backyard. And then this photo is our pickup location in Alamosa. I'll get more into that, but just some nice photos. Oh. All right, so some background. We started in 2015 in response to farm to school efforts under the umbrella nonprofit, the SLV Local Foods Coalition. They were at a meeting. Sheldon Rocky was in the back of the room, and really what came out of that meeting was how we are in this agricultural dense area of the San Luis Valley, yet, you know, institutional buyers and even just your average person can't have access to that. So that's where we come in. We're that intermediary where we aggregate from farmers, ranchers, producers, and then we distribute wholesale to restaurants, grocery stores, caterers, buying clubs, institutional buyers like our hospitals, schools, and to individuals at home. And then we also have 3 online markets, 2 wholesale. So the Valley Roots Food Hub wholesale and the Taproot Cooperative are the wholesale markets. And then our 1 retail market, which is our Valley Roots Food Hub CSA market. Our year-round offerings include eggs, meat, dairy, value-added products, and of course, seasonal produce, as we are in Colorado. And then while you're shopping the market, there is transparency for the consumer to see if the produce is conventional, organic, certified organic. And then what we have is a regenerative soil farmer stamp of approval. Our advisory board of the Food Hub is Paul New, the Jones Organic Farm, as well as John Kretzinger and Patrick O'Neill, soil agronomist. So when we got started, it was really important to really uplift the producers that are on a small scale, can't afford the time or paperwork to get organically certified. And we know that they're growing in living soils, and that's really what we care about the most. And what's great for our customers is it's just-in-time delivery. We offer the freshest food available to our customers, and customers are enjoying, food that's picked 2 days before they get it to their door, versus our competition, which is primarily based on storing food by inventory. And when you get that food at the end customer gets that produce, that spinach or lettuce has been picked probably a week and a half up to 2 weeks before it actually gets to their door. So we are offering a pretty diverse and different model. Oh, whoops. So this is kind of a preview look into the wholesale market. Right now we have one order cycle. And so when you log in per customer, you'll see your name here. You'll see delivery April 20th. And for wholesale, we do have a $350 order minimum for complimentary delivery. And again, if you see any of the competition, we're at the lower end. It's upwards of 500 plus for complimentary delivery. And then our online market is open 24/7 for ordering convenience. After orders are placed, myself, the markets manager, builds our pick list. And then I place orders per producer. Some of them are Amish producers, so I'm calling them on the phone. Some of them are email or text preferred, similar to what Shayna was saying. It's whatever the producer prefers is how I get it out to them. And then, so we have a list and we mark it by number 1 through 9. 1 through 4 is our fresh produce pickup. So eggs, greens, anything that's fresh that week. And then 5 through 9 is anything that we can store in our warehouse. And so I guess we could go to this real quick. So we're ordering just a random customer. So I can ghost as any customer. So once you have like the whole access to our full list, and you can scroll like that, or if you have a standing order of eggs each week, we might be out of eggs, but we have some left, yay. So you can just search there, which is pretty convenient. Don't know, sorry. Yeah, again, so our customer schedule works as we have a 4 p.m. order deadline. Then around 4:30 to 5, I'm getting orders out to producers. Tuesday, the producers have time to pack and fill those orders. Wednesday, our driving team picks up from those producers and we all coalesce to the warehouse, and we still have a warehouse team working in the warehouse as those drivers are on the road, and then we're filling orders on pallets based on customer, as well as individual CSA boxes. So this is a photo of a loadout from looks like Millburger Farms and Pueblo area from a couple summers ago. And then, yeah, so I was just kind of saying, so our schedule on Wednesdays is we have a driver that owns and operates a farm in Pueblo, and we're really lucky to have him. So he starts in Pueblo, driving from, the Pueblo producers and then into Canyon City, picking up there, into Salida, and then down and meeting in Mosca. And then we have a driver going south, so hitting up our producers in Monte Vista and Alamosa, and then a driver going west. So getting producers from Del Norte, Monte Vista. And then our warehouse team again is picking shelf-stable products. Here's just another photo, and yeah, it gets pretty crazy in here, especially in the summer months. It's awesome though. We love the fresh produce season. Some strengths and challenges to what we do. We already had infrastructure in place for home delivery during the COVID-19 shutdown, which for us was a blessing. I'm not going to say it was like woohoo, like we grew in sales, but we did. But it's because we already had infrastructure in place, and grocery store shelves were disappearing, and so we already had home delivery in place, which was huge. So customers didn't even have to go to our pickup locations available. We would deliver right to their door. And our sales on the CSA market side grew, I don't even know the percentage, but we got like 80 new signups in that first week. And then we still have steady signups each week as well, continuing from that pandemic time. Customers can enjoy over 100 plus producers from our producer network all in one invoice, which I think this is the biggest asset to what we do, because I think a big hurdle in working with local producers is managing all those different invoices and all those different times and delivery and whatnot, whereas we're getting it, all of this to you on one order cycle. And then again, customers are receiving the freshest just picked produce available. Our delivery range is very broad. We go from the San Luis Valley to Leadville, Denver to Boulder, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and Canyon City, Pagosa Springs to Durango. And we also work closely with other existing food hubs. We work with farm runners over in Hotchkiss, and that's how we get our produce, like the peaches, cherries, all the fruits. And then we also work with East Denver Food Hub, and we've been, last week, the three of us were all in Gunnison for this Southwest connectivity project that we're really pumped about, and how we can actually work better, the three of us. And other existing food hubs. And then some of the challenges are, of course, finding the right wholesale customers that understand the seasonality of local food. We have some champions, and they get it, and they are the ones that are, it's mostly restaurants that are changing their menu on a weekly basis, that really care about local and using local farms first. And this is also an issue, I would say, throughout the board, is having the turnover rate in this industry is pretty high. And I think that is one of the reasons why some of this happens. But, having a restaurant that still has a farm on the menu, yet that farmers haven't delivered to them in probably 2 years. And so there's a lot of greenwashing in this industry too, and that we really need to protect and really elevate those producers that are doing local, and not just say that you're doing local when available, and really get behind that if you're going to do it. So yeah, maintaining relationships is huge. My favorite thing is visiting the restaurants and our institutional buyers face to face. That FaceTime is so important. And also our challenges are trucking and transportation. We are in the San Luis Valley, and so getting out of here, the only way to get out of the valley without driving a mountain pass is going into New Mexico. So we have Wolf Creek Pass, Poncha Pass, and La Vida Pass. So those are definitely some big hurdles in the winter driving time. And just maintaining our truck fleet. Our trucking is just enormous. We did not start in the trucking transportation business. We were part of Taproot, which I'll explain a little bit right now. So Taproot Cooperative, why we still use that name, is back when we first started, we were working with other food hubs quite regularly, and they were doing the transportation for us. So it was more so buying at a very cheap rates for the food hubs to then, be able to resell. But unfortunately, we were working with Arkansas Valley Organic Growers, and they were sued by a producer. So it's kind of dissolved and we just kept the name. We'd really love to grow it and grow this cooperative of food hubs if possible. But yeah, trucking is quite insane. I think last year we had one truck that was like $45,000 fix. And comparing it to these leases, truck leases, a Penske lease for 1 month is $30,000. So obviously fixing what we have is cheaper in the long run, but they do age out. And so we are looking into alternatives, and even at a electric reefer truck from Nikola, and some other alternatives as well. But it's, a process of phasing out some of the old. So this is our fresh box photo of our fresh box season. As you can see, all of these boxes that are up, our share program has grown immensely with also the help of some of these institutions with grant funding. So Nourish Colorado has really helped us grow this program. And every week in the summer, for the past 3 years, going into 4th season, we're feeding 44 seniors every week with our Fresh Box program, which we're super stoked about. And then our partner organization here in the Valley does that last mile distribution to different seniors around the Valley. And so this program is 13 weeks long, and you get a share of produce over the course of those 13 weeks. And it goes down, it averages out to about $35 a week. So it is definitely not like your full grocery shopping. And if you think about it, like how much are you spending on one, weeks of groceries? Probably around 50 to 100, depending on your family size. And so, but we are highlighting every week a multi-farm CSA. So whenever the fruit comes on, we're hoping for cherries first, and then the apricots, and then the peaches. And we really just educate our shareholders kind of the seasonality of the Colorado food system. And just every week, every person gets a newsletter with recipe inspiration, producer bios, and then exactly what's in the box. So it's really a cool process. And I think a really awesome alternative to some of these like HelloFresh things on the market. It's like a fresh, recipe box of what's actually in season in your food shed. And then customers can also shop with us year round. They don't have to buy into the Fresh Box program. We call it a la carte shopping. So really just online grocery shopping. And again, that's not for everybody. It does take some getting used to, and planning and foresight, and what you need and want is different than just going to the grocery store. But I think it's also pretty rewarding when you get used to it. We also accept SNAP and Double Up. Those processes were, I think, huge for us in really expanding our market, especially to our CSA customer base. The only downside right now is customers have to come to our warehouse in Moscow. We cannot accept it over the phone. And you're allowed to do Amazon and Walmart with SNAP, but it's because those are, huge businesses that have the funds to get the necessary software into your current software database. And so we did an analysis like a couple years ago. I asked Nick Chambers, our GM, about it, and he said it'd be at least $100,000 project for our software team to develop. So we're really hoping for more streamlined options, because I think it would really grow our sales if we could just deliver straight to SNAP customers. And there are all alternatives where a driver could hold like a machine. I just worry about the reliability of that for sure. And here's just some examples of some of our fresh boxes from last summer. They can vary. We also do a Cracker Jack item, which is a shelf stable item. So this one we have beans. Here we have our sunflower oil, some hot sauce, and some barley. So marketing and advertising, we're trying to get better at. I think one of the things that I've noticed is not even everyone in the Sunless Valley knows that we're here and available for folks. And we are getting new, it's mostly word of mouth, funny enough, in the rural and Facebook. But before we even go to a potential buyer, say a restaurant, we do extensive menu research. Do any of our products already align? We're not going to try to go to, Joe's Crab Shack if we don't have crab to offer. That's just not how we do things. And so do our values align? And if yes, then we'll do the phone call, we'll, get the email of the person ordering and really try to set up a meeting from there, because it's 7 touches, right? Before landing a sale. And that in person is so important. And then we do samples. We'll even go backdoor alleyways, knocking on people's doors, especially for those restaurant tours. And then social media has been really big. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and we have a website. And then I've also been doing more radio and podcasts, which are really fun. We have a great local outfit down here called Alamosa Citizen, and their podcast is on all platforms. And so that's really fun, and that's really good questions. And so just like the more that we're in people's just, area and like metaverse, I think the more that will grow. And as we are in our 8th year, it is pretty wild that we're still not in everyone's ears. But I think just the pandemic, as awful as it was, I think just highlighted that we need a strong local food system. And once, just our whole thesis is local food first. Obviously, you're going to have to supplement with other food outside of your local food shed, but choosing local first is how we can support our producers and our economy as a whole. Here's some contact info. My email, phone number, Nick's email, phone number. And again, if you're in the Front Range area, this will be your online market, Valley to Buena Vista here, and then an individual is this one down here. And of course, all this is also on our website. So if you don't want to write any of that down, you can just find us on valleyrootsfoodhub.com. Thank you so much.
Excellent job, Al. Does anybody have any questions? I'm curious, Al, what advice would you give our Colorado Proud members on how best to work with you guys?
Ooh, yes. So we do work with quite a few Colorado Proud members, everywhere from like the big guys, bow and arrow, to small folks starting up a new outfit. And really just an email, just telling us what you have and available, what your product is. We of course prefer if it's an item that's like made with Colorado products and then Colorado Proud, that's just huge for us. But yeah, just giving us your sales sheets. I think a lot of times we get confused with, especially the smaller folks starting out with, say like a hot sauce company or something, if they're not used to distribution. We are a distributor. So, a distributor is going to ask for a different price sheet than a wholesaler, or if you're selling direct, because we're a distributor. So there is a couple markup points going from to restaurant, getting to the end customer versus, or especially grocery stores has the most markup, where they're getting it and then they have to mark it up to go on the shelf. So yeah, we just distributor price list is awesome. And yeah, just emailing either Nick or myself and saying that you're interested in working with us is great. We have folks that work with us from all over this great state. So just reach out.
That's great. Thank you so much. Excellent job. I'm going to go ahead and Roberto, I'm going to turn it over to you. Did that work okay?
I think so. Yeah. I'm just pulling up my slides.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much, Barb, for inviting me to share a little bit about East Denver Food Hub, what we do and how we work. I guess I'll start off just by providing some context. So as Barb mentioned in my introduction, I'm a first generation farmer. I came to Colorado in 2013, really with the aspirations of becoming a year-round farmer using greenhouse technology. And so my farm partner and I launched Emerald Gardens and really focused on greenhouse operations to be a source of food security for our community. And in that whole trajectory, building out the farm from scratch pretty much because there was nothing on the land, we were really students of the soil and of the food system, experiencing the challenges and the opportunities. And I think for me, farming has really informed the way that I see our food ecosystems, not just with respect to the challenges, whether it's climate change, supply chain disruptions, the rising cost of food, economic instabilities, or social inequalities, but also in relation to long-term solutions that have immediate impact, that uplift community initiatives and promote food sovereignty and resilience in agriculture and the greater food system. And that was really something that I think activated for me in such a deep and meaningful way during the pandemic. In 2020, Emerald Gardens lost 60% of our sales pretty much overnight, primarily in the food service industry, but also with wholesalers that closed down, such as Lucky's Market and Alfalfa's up here in this region. And we were starting off the season with about $12,000 in deficits. And so it was really challenging for us. There was a lot of fear and uncertainty, but we realized that we had an incredible community and rising up to address the need specifically around food insecurity. So my previous relationships with food pantries and community organizations really came in such a dire need for us. And as Shana kind of mentioned in the beginning, a lot of these organizations that were traditionally focused on food donations started to purchase because there was such a low donation of food for those organizations. And that really helped us provide a market for our products, being able to pivot and work with other organizations. And that really kind of created for us the opportunity to understand supply chain management, to understand coordination, distribution, and logistics, and to rapid prototype a food system that meets the needs of farmers as well as communities. And so for us, it was just an incredible moment of realization that we can have a drastically different food system than the one that created some of these challenges to begin with in the first place. And so we've really developed our network. We work with farmers from all over the state, specifically in Greeley, and also through our partners, Valley Roots, down in the San Luis Valley. And a lot of folks, I think, have questions as to what a food hub is and how it's different than a food distributor or a food co-op. And really, it's essentially an opportunity for us to address aggregation, distribution, and marketing by connecting local and regional producers to markets in the community, whether it's direct to consumer or through wholesale buyers. And so here at East Denver Food Hub, we have a team of 2 doing value chain coordination. Value chain coordination is really incorporating a lot of different functions, but for us, it really starts with building relationships with the farmers. We have one of our value chain coordinators is specifically looking at the farmers in our network and visiting with them, understanding their challenges, their volume and output for food. And another one of our value chain coordinators is looking at where best to connect those farmers. So we do kind of a matchmaking of scales, products, and pricing so that we're able to include both small scale farmers, but also large scale producers. We work with as small producers that operate on an acre, a quarter acre, to those that operate several hundred acres. And I think that's the really beautiful thing about a food hub is that because we understand the challenges both on the demand side and the supply side, we're really addressing that missing link to create a bridge or a matchmaking model that supports everybody in the food system. We also work with food service companies. So we did a pilot for beans that were grown locally in Boulder Valley, and we work with Aramark to supply them to correctional facilities across the state. We've also worked with other suppliers, and so we have a theory of change that really relies on providing the customers what they need, specifically during the winter months when our peak of production is not really what we can rely on. And so rather than missing out on a sale or an opportunity to build relationships, we work with smaller local distributors that provide us those products that institutions or larger buyers need during the winter months. And then we slowly transition them throughout the season as more local product becomes available, by also educating them on the impact of their procurement dollars. And so the beautiful cycle here is that as we incentivize more local purchasing, we're able to support dollars back to local producers and farmers and ranchers so that they can increase their operations, scale without risk, and be able to then production plan for the next season now that we have a track record of what institutions are looking for. Throughout this whole supply chain, we really focus on transparency and creating source identification for every product so that we can bring to light the farming practices, the labor, and the environmental impact of our producers. Specifically as more and more customers are really hoping to understand where their food comes from, how it's grown, and what the environmental impact is. The more we experience climate change, the more we see arable land disappear, the more critical it is for consumers to know that they play an active role in whether or not we'll be able to have food in the next 60 years. And so making those conscious decisions now and highlighting the impact of their purchasing practices is critical to advancing this vision of an equitable food system. We work with Altitude Produce, another local partner of ours that is immigrant run, and they do a lot of our logistics and distribution. And so we create a really good model of reciprocity between producers and suppliers working with them. We share our warehouse with them. We have a 15,000 square foot warehouse. We have 3 distribution trucks. They go out every day. We don't really have a, so to speak, like an order deadline. You basically go online, look at what we have, place your orders. We take phone, text, and email inquiries, and then we distribute them as fast as we can, depending on the product that we have on hand. And so now we're really kind of leveraging what we've learned to support new markets, specifically in food service and restaurants that we've never really engaged in the past. A lot of our customers have mainly been food pantries, Food Bank of the Rockies as well, and community organizations. And now we're really looking at the whole food system and every possible market, knowing that we can match make with the supply that we have in Colorado. But really for us, it comes down to the vision where we see a food economy that values farmers, that really understands the value and honors the land, and that we always have an opportunity to provide people with the food that they need. And so for us, this is really the anchor for everything that we try and do. And I often ask folks, and I know we're kind of running a little bit out of time, but I ask folks to close their eyes and to think about what this food system would look like, what it would taste like, what it would be like to be in this ecosystem that nourishes our bodies, that nourishes the soil, and also our social relationships. I'd like to provide an overview as well. We see our work as an ecosystem. As I mentioned earlier, we're students of the soil, and in farming, the biology of the soil is so critical to the resilience, the quality, and the harvest that farmer is able to produce. the reciprocity between microorganisms, fungi, bacteria, worms, etc., really create that fertile ground that makes food possible. And so we see our work is in a similar way to create a social food system, one that nourishes our communities, but that also necessitates community connections. And so for us, this ecosystem is encapsulated by working with Emerald Gardens and about 50 other farmers. Emerald Gardens is operating as an incubator and supports new enterprises. We also work with our hub-to-hub connections, whether it's Valley Roots, Taproot, Farm Runners, or often other food co-ops, High Plains Food Co-op, for example. And we're really creating a local food supply chain through the reciprocal relationship of these smaller suppliers and distributors, and then community and advocacy opportunities. And so what we do with understanding the challenges, we take to policy. We inform conversations around Farm Bill or state policy from the Department of Agriculture perspective, and build that connection with our communities so that we are able to amplify their voices and understand the needs that are most at the center of these conversations. And food sales is really the market that we're able to leverage to sustain the economic justice in and around all the components of the food system. All of this is really grounded by our values of environmental justice, community wealth building, creating a supply of values-based local food procurement, and more importantly, equity and transparency in the supply chain. One of the initiatives that we're really excited about this year is, well, I guess I can kind of go through these accomplishments. We're really in the process of making sure that we can provide more dollars back to our farmers. To date, since the pandemic, we've made about $1 million in purchases from local farmers and distributed around 500,000 pounds of food to markets and to food insecure families. We are trying to scale because for us, that means creating more jobs and providing opportunities for community members to really have a dramatic impact in their economic situation. And then on Emerald Gardens, for example, we're incubating Sugar Moon mushrooms and High Plains eggs, a commercial egg operation, and Miguel Angel Produce. It's another farm worker turned farm owner. And so we're really hoping to support that as much as possible. But one thing we're really looking forward to this year is creating the solar polar refrigeration network. Currently, as we've all kind of mentioned, food distribution is so infrastructure heavy, and we really rely on cold storage to make this possible because we're dealing with perishable food items. However, it's so incredibly difficult. We've been looking since last year to find warehousing space, and everything that we found is either out of our price range or in an undesirable location, or just not meeting the infrastructure requirements that we need. So we partnered with a local manufacturer called Radiant Innovation to develop these solar-powered, off-grid, sustainable refrigeration units. The beautiful thing about these is that they have a wide range of applications. They've enabled us to provide food to communities where that infrastructure is lacking. And it ensures that we're able to be much more nimble in our distribution, reducing the food miles that it takes to get there. But we've also seen a lot of potential to supply these to communities of agricultural producers who also struggle to find storage for their crops. And so rather than having a centralized food system and infrastructure model, we're really looking at this to unfold a hub and spoke model that enables us to deepen our community connections and relationships, to minimize our footprint, and to maximize the resilience and efficiency of food distribution. So if anybody's interested, I can provide more info on that. And just quickly wrapping up here, this is how you can reach us, whether if you're interested in working with us, or if you're interested in supplying us in any way. We would love to get to know you, to build the relationship, to visit your farm, and for you to visit our food hub. If you're ever in the Denver metro area, please feel free to stop by. We look forward to building this food system together. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Very interesting what you're moving towards. Thanks for sharing all of that. Does anybody have any questions for Roberto? Well, let's move on. We've got two producers with us, and I think it'll be exciting to understand from their perspective how they decided to begin doing business with food hubs or food banks. Let's start with Derek. Derek, can you tell us how you decided to make the business decision to begin working with the food hub?
Hi there. Sure, I'm happy, and thank you for inviting me to be here. So as I'm sitting here listening to this, I'm kind of reminded of the old farmer joke. What is a farmer but somebody who's outstanding in their field? So get the groans out of the way. I'm literally outstanding in my field right now in North Greeley. I don't have any fancy slides, but I do have an interesting story how we got there. We do work with the Food Bank of the Rockies and East Denver Food Hub, as well as some other organizations in the Golden and Denver metro area, Aurora, those kind of areas. So for us, if you're a first-time farmer, or you're someone who suddenly finds yourself farming, or you suddenly want to make this as a career, you in our case, it was Hanmei decided, hey, I just want to sell our produce from our garden at the farmer's market. And okay, great, great idea. And so that was 9 years ago. And what you realize is as a small producer or a first-time producer is that there's very limited markets for your product. The farmers markets is the most obvious choice, but it's kind of a complex process. You have to package, get up early, set up, and you hope the people show up. And we had a great success that first year doing the farmers markets in 2015, and we thought, wow, we were sold out all the time. Let's expand. And I know there's other small, mid-sized producers that have experienced this. And so we expand, but what we found out in year 2 of doing the farmers markets is that there's an upward limit to what you can sell. There's only so many cucumbers, zucchinis, and things that you can sell in a limited amount of time. So what are your alternatives as a small producer? You could go after restaurants, and I would say when we started out, there was a bigger farm to table movement 9 years ago, 8 years ago than there is today. There are still some restaurants that are buying local, generally for salads, things like that are kind of fresh that they serve with the meal. And you can work with them. You could, kind of go after that business. What we found, being in North Greeley where we're at, is that we found ourselves doing a lot of deliveries, 30, 40-minute drives to drop off $10, $15 worth of lettuce or something, cherry tomatoes, for example. And so we questioned if we were actually making money doing that market. The other part of it as a small producer is farming is very cash up front, very heavy on the front end to get your season underway. You generally have two options. You can go to a bank, and bank might look at you funny. Why are you choosing this as a career? You may or may not be able to pull out a line of credit to kind of get your business started up, without proof that you can make money. That's kind of a limiting factor to a small producer. And so a lot of them opt to do the CSA model, where you get the community to buy in up front. You have your cash, you can purchase your seeds, your season can get underway. The people who help support you up front are rewarded with the product at the end. For us, it was probably doable, but it didn't make a lot of sense where we're at. We have a location that limits us in doing something like that. And so it was about year 2 where we had ramped up. We realized the upper limits of what we can sell at the farmers markets. And we stumbled into farm to school. And this is a story that can be relevant to working with the food banks or a food hub, is that we stumbled into farm to school with simply 2 boxes of cantaloupes. That was it. And so if you're a producer looking to work with these organizations, Don't think of it as you have to have a truckload of stuff or product. It is just very simply, it just can be a couple boxes of things just to get your foot in the door. For us, we chose the farm to school path, which is a whole other conversation. But in doing so, we invested in cold storage. We invested in trucks, refrigerated trucks, and that was just to overcome one of the biggest challenges to small to mid-size producers is logistics, getting your product to other markets. I mean, as a farmer, you don't, for a first-time farmer or a beginning farmer, you don't wake up and say, "Hey, I'm going to sell to Kroger," get my picture at the door when I walk into the vegetable aisle. There are there are some very limiting factors that will prevent you from doing that. It's not impossible, but it's limiting. So for us, we invested in the logistics just because of our location, because of the markets we went to, and this is what allowed us over the course of years to begin working with smaller programs that did WIC, the women and child programs, food packaging. We did do some food pantry work, but where it led us is that what we saw going on prior to the pandemic is that I think everybody was aware there is a lack of market for small to mid-sized producers. You have the farmers markets, you have CSAs, and some restaurants, not much else. And there had been many attempts. I can think of 2 attempts in our 9 years prior to the pandemic that they attempted to start a food hub in northern Colorado, and it just couldn't get off the ground. And so one thing that we could see as a positive lining in COVID in 2020 is that there was an there was a push from that allowed the organization like East Denver Food Hub to start up. And you heard his story, and they actually reached out to us. They were looking for producers, and we're sitting here with volumes of stuff because we've been scaling for kind of a very small whole scale market. And we began working with them, and it was what was great about that relationship in the beginning, and still true, is the logistics. That is the hardest part of being a small producer. They actually came out to our farm all the way from East Denver, and would weekly purchase stuff from us and got our product to the markets, to other customers. And having that logistical challenge, I mean, for us, we were delivering to schools, but there's also limits to, we want to be farmers, we don't want to be a logistics and delivery company. So we can take care of a handful of customers, but we couldn't grow. And so with them stepping in and filling that part of the logistics, it helped us grow. So we have kept expanding really since 2020. And they have ushered our product out to further customers. And I think as a producer, the things that you look at are price points, can I do this? Do I have the volume? Things like that. And I recommend, my advice is just put all that to the side. They're filling that gap that needs to happen for small to medium producers. And maybe you can't get the volume, but get them something, because supporting them helps them grow and it helps us build this food network. So I can reinforce a lot of what has been said here. So that's my role in this conversation today, is I can reinforce and validate a lot of what has been said. As for the Food Bank of the Rockies, we work with them, and it was 7 years ago, we donated zucchini to the Weld Food Bank over here, who's 3 miles down the road from us. And there came a point, they're like, well, we can only take so much zucchini. I mean, we really can't take any more donations on that. But we were able to donate a few other things, and we were kind of working there. Well, this last year, I remember a conversation that they had a purchasing program to help stock fresh fruits and vegetables in their food pantries. And we had just an oversupply of stuff. So I can reinforce what Shana was saying, is that we had an oversupply of stuff. And Jaime looks at me, what are we going to do with a truckload of cabbage? I'm like, we really need to reach out to the Food Bank of the Rockies. And we just simply sent an email. Hey, do you have any interest in this? We can get it to you. And that's all it took. and they gladly purchased it. We set our price point, which we think is competitive, and they were happy, and it kind of opened that relationship, and it was an oversupply. And I guarantee you, a lot of small, mid-sized producers in a given year will have an oversupply of product, and the food banks, food pantries, especially here in northern Colorado where I'm at, Larimer County and Weld Food Bank, they will take that product. And I can also, the last thing I can add here is that there is a farm that we've befriended over the years, a very large organic operation. They just celebrated their 100-year anniversary here this last year of operation. So well established. They were asking me where I go with my products, and I said, we're schools, some aggregate CSAs in the Denver area, things like that. I said, and I just offhand mentioned, well, we've sold some stuff to the Food Bank of the Rockies, and just his jaw dropped. What do you mean they buy stuff? And so they're it's like they do. And so he was just shocked. And I said, you really need to reach out to them, because I know they'll take your oversupply on product. They generally deal with Whole Foods and other areas, but they still have a surplus with crops. So that is our journey the last 9 years. I appreciate being here, and happy to answer any questions.
That's great. Thank you for sharing your story. It's great to hear it. Does anybody have any questions for Derek? We saw Roberto's appreciation there. Thank you, Roberto. I think that's a great partnership you guys have formed. Well, that's excellent. Let's move on to Janie. And Janie, I posed to you the same question. How did you decide to make partnering with Food Bank of the Rockies part of your business plan? And I'm going to share some beautiful pictures that Janie shared of her ranch and her cattle.
Well, thank you, Barb, and thanks for inviting me as well. I'm going to make this quick because I know that everybody was kind of scheduled to be done by 11:30, so I'll move quickly. We actually have been doing direct consumer marketing for probably 5, 6, 7 years. We are a conventional cow-calf producer in Western Colorado, and the majority of our cattle go into the mainstream food supply. And I always have an interesting conversation with my customers, my direct customers, about that, that's how we get food to the masses. And I think that's a really important piece. We small, medium, large, we need all producers. It's not a matter of either or, it's and I just really believe that very strongly. We started donating a cow probably 10, 15 years ago in our community. Every year we donated a cow. And for a number of years, we did it anonymously because, again, we didn't want credit for it. We wanted the beef community to get the credit for that donation. We would give it to the Salvation Army or Hope of the Grand Valley, some of those organizations. So we've always had a real bent that it's important to get high quality protein in the hands of all the people that need it. Certainly during COVID, our direct to consumer marketing improved. We started selling a lot more meats, certainly. But I also realized that there were people who probably were not getting food that needed it. So reached out to some of the small pantries that Shana talked about and started selling direct to those small pantries. And one of them said, you really need to reach to the Food Bank of the Rockies because that's where we all get most of our product, which, to Derek's point, I had no idea about that either. So that was a real learning for us. Had a number of conversations with the local folks here in Grand Junction, and ultimately they invited us to come take a tour of their facility, the old facility. So we did. Our whole family went out and just had a really great time kind of looking through and understanding the process about food distribution for folks who needed it. And that's what we are all about as well. So that was kind of cool, but it also started a relationship. And I can't emphasize that enough, is that relationship piece. We told them what our needs were and they told us what their needs were. And lo and behold, we were able to come together. One of our biggest challenges was whether they needed 500 pounds or 5,000 pounds. from month to month. So again, through a lot of communication and building those relationships, we talked a lot about what would work for us and what would work for them. So that was a really big process for us, is that building the relationships and communicating. The kind of beef that we offer to the food bank is ground beef. That's what we started with in the very beginning, was selling ground beef, because we wanted to add value to a low value product on the ranch. And so the ground beef certainly filled that need. And as we were selling that product, that meets the need that they have. It also, again, meets our need as well. And I think you're going to hear that as we talk a lot, is what meets the need of the food bank, what meets the need of us on the ranch. And that works really well for us. Certifications, our meat is produced or is processed in a USDA certified facility, and that's a really important piece for me as a producer. But I also tell consumers that it's important to you that product is inspected. It's a safeguard. We just had a situation that became very clear. They called me and said that one of our cows were randomly selected for tissue sampling. And I said, oh, great. And they were, the processor says, you think that's a good thing? And I said, absolutely. I know that the animal is clean. We adhere to the withdrawal processes. But I want to give the food bank and our other consumers, I want to give them that assurance that it's antibiotic free. There's no added hormones in our product. So that was kind of exciting, actually, when they randomly tested one of our cows. Advice to other producers, I would say the main thing is communication and developing that relationship. Hannah, I believe, works with Shayna. And Hannah, we know each other, and that's kind of cool. I really look forward to having her visit the ranch here in Western Colorado when she gets over here. So that's been a really important piece as well. One of the challenges was that they're used to dealing with some larger organizations. So sometimes our producer would put 46 pounds in a box, and sometimes there would be 48 or 50 pounds in a box. And so we had to work through some issues like that. I had to help my processor understand that those boxes needed to be, the quantities needed to be consistent. And that was a challenge, but we continued to work that through. And I think we're there at this point. I think our boxes are the same every single box. Facilitating the pickup was another challenge, and we still kind of struggle with that. But again, when there's a problem, the processor calls me, I call Hannah, Hannah calls the transportation department, and it gets handled, and it's not a crisis. Again, that open communication has been really a big deal. Getting quantities right, as I think Shayna mentioned earlier, a cow is not a cow is not a cow. As you can see from the pictures, cows are all different sizes. And so working through that quantity piece, that was one of the challenges for us on our side too. Planning, what is coming up, and talking about the grant process and all of that. I've learned a lot more about grants than I ever thought I would know. We want to take care of the cows, but we know that it's important for us to expand and share our knowledge and share the work that we do, and market our product in a way that is important to our consumers, certainly. We do sell at a discounted price, a substantially discounted price, but I truly believe the food bank wants us to be successful, and they're not trying to get all they can get for as little as they have to pay for it, and I appreciate that. We've held our prices as significantly low as we can, and Hannah and I've had some very candid conversations about that, and that's been a really important part with the challenges too, is how do we keep those prices that work the best for the food bank, but also that it's positive for us as well. So I would be happy to take any questions. Again, I just kind of rushed through, but I know that everybody's schedule is tight, and so I don't want to keep us any longer, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. I should
Thank
tell
you
you
for that.
one other thing. We have a new website. So this is part of our
Thank you.
marketing. So Van Winkle Ranch has a new website that we're pretty excited to have out there as well. So we're moving in this direction it's exciting to hear you folks and the work that you're doing with other producers.
What is your new website? Can we share that?
Sure, it's just vanwinkleranch.com.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate everybody's participation. And certainly, again, if anybody has any questions that maybe you think of later, you can download this entire webinar and have the contact information, or feel free to reach out to me. And I will certainly get in touch with these panelists and get them your question. And I thank each of the panelists. Your time is very, very, very valuable. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this with us. And thank you to every attendee. Really appreciate you tuning in. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.